Warning, graphic content. The following images and/or content may be disturbing to some viewers. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. Welcome to a special episode of 4x4. In this episode, we are going to talk about the phenomenon that has been happening for centuries, cow mutilations. We're going to talk a little bit about the history and the newest theory about why they are being mutilated. By the end of this episode, every time you see one of these, you're going to think of one of these.
Four by four by land, 4x4 by sea, 4x4 by air, cause the lot to fly free. 4x4 a.m., that's when I rise.
Before I talk about cow mutilations, I want to talk about something weird that happened in the Indian state of Kerala in 2001. The local residents heard a loud bang, and then it started raining red rain. Now, red rain isn't that unusual, and at first they thought it was just the dust from the Arabian desert. But this red rain looked like blood, so then a scientist, Godfrey Lewis, collected samples of the rain and found that it wasn't dust particles, it was living cells that resembled blood cells. After a DNA test, he found that the cells had no DNA. What was even weirder is that the cells were radioactive and that they divided at high temperatures, all the way up to 572 degrees Fahrenheit, which is hot enough to kill most life forms on the planet. Anyway, something to put in the back of your mind. Let's get back to the cow mutilations. Cow mutilations, also known as bovine excision, is a phenomenon that's been going on for centuries. Charles Fort collected many accounts of cow mutilation in the late 19th century. Reports of mutilation have been going on for years since. In 1975, due to public concern, Senator Floyd Caskell of Colorado contacted the FBI and asked them to investigate. They did an investigation, and then in 1979 they released a report stating that in Colorado alone there were 8,000 cases of cattle mutilations. That's a lot of cows. While some cases were explainable, most were not. And not all these cases were cattle. Some were horses, some were deer, and most cases the animal was found drained completely of blood, with no blood on the ground around the animal, and with perfect surgery having been performed. Some believe these operations occur while the animal is still alive. Eyeballs, jaw flesh, tongue, rectum, and genitals, and ears are the items that are usually harvested. Flesh from the animal has been so perfectly removed, scientists have gone on record stating no human could have performed these operations, especially in older cases. The tools just weren't invented yet. Furthermore, reports of burn or scorch marks are found around the animal, along with trace levels of radiations, leaving many confused on what could be causing this. Some scientists tried to explain what was happening by examining trace blood cells left behind. They reported that the cells were lighter in color than normal and would not clot after several days, making them believe that an anticoagulant was used. After testing the hide, they found it was unusually brittle for a fresh death. All in all, it's just weird. Let's go over the top 5 theories of why this is happening. Number 1, aliens. Aliens are taking cows and collecting genetic information to study. While aliens could be responsible, considering some of these cases it seemed like the cow was dropped from the sky, the problem with this theory is that it's hard to believe that aliens would travel light years through space, and instead of locking the secrets of the universe, they want to study cow butts. Lots and lots of cow butts. Number 2, cults. Cults are sacrificing cows for Satan and doing demonic rituals. This one is hard to believe due to the surgical expertise that was reported from the mutilation. Not to mention, if this is the case and there are that many satanic rituals going on in Colorado, I am never setting foot in Colorado. Ever. Number 3, scavengers. Well, scavengers and predators, this one makes a lot of sense because they love soft tissue. And if a cow had died from natural causes, that would make an easy meal. The problem is that teeth marks and flesh tears would have been found. Plus, it doesn't explain the anticoagulants in their blood or the radiation. Factor in that farmers are the ones most freaked out by this, then they're used to scavengers and predators, so this one doesn't really make sense. Number 4, government experiments. The government has been doing experiments on cows, and some conspiracy theorists believe that the government is responsible for creating mad cow disease, which would explain the anticoagulants in the blood and the surgical precision. And I will admit the US government is exactly trustworthy, but these reports started in the early 19th century, and if the government wanted to experiment on cows, wouldn't they just buy their own farm and run their own experiments on a secret cow base or something, so they wouldn't bring attention to themselves? I don't know. This one just doesn't make sense either. Number 5, natural causes. When the body dies, smaller organisms eat the flesh and give off gas, expanding the body to expand, contract, ripping the skin, and they digest the organs, leaving the carcass mutilated. Well, this one does make sense. Again, it doesn't explain the radiation or the anticoagulants in the blood. And like I said, farmers would be used to it, so this one doesn't make sense either. So time to talk about the newest theory. The newest theory to hit the cattle mutilation community has to do with the first explanation we talked about: aliens. But like I said earlier, why would aliens want to collect and store animal genitalia just to study? 8,000 cases in Colorado? That's a lot of nuts. Doesn't make sense. But let's start assuming you were a highly evolved being from another race who wanted to travel through space. Since space is so vast, you would need to have the most efficient fuel possible and be able to find a way to refuel your ship with the least amount of effort. Nuclear power is something even our civilization has harnessed, from power plants to naval vessels. In fact, over the past 4 decades, the entire industry has produced 75,000 metric tons of used nuclear fuel. Anyways, let's assume you had a ship that ran on a fuel that was a form of liquid radiation. How would you make it? Let's say you took a cow, pulled out the blood and soft tissue of the cow, made sure the cow was still alive when you did it so the cells didn't die, blasted it with a shot of radiation, remove the DNA coding of the cells. I know it sounds like science fiction, but it isn't science fiction, because these days scientists pull the DNA from cells and introduce new DNA whenever they're cloning an animal. So back to the cells. After you pull out the DNA, but you leave just enough coding that it still replicates, and if you get it to replicate at a higher temperature and keep the radiation level, you could use it for fuel and a cooling source. In essence, you would have a self-replicating fuel source that would last much longer as you travel through space. Okay, if I lost you on the way, picture this. You go fuel your car. Now think about how much farther you'd be able to go if the gasoline was made of cells that replicated themselves as you drove along. You would be able to drive a lot farther on less gas. I know. It sounds nuttier than squirrel poop. Aliens using cows to fuel their ships. It sounds as crazy as humans using dinosaurs to fuel their cars. But think about this. Remember the rain in Kerala? The Botanic Garden and Research Institute official explanation that it was spores. But many scientists don't believe it. They've never figured out why there would be no DNA in the cells, why they'd be radioactive, and how come they can replicate at high temperatures. Many people have claimed that it was a meteorite that made the loud bang that people heard in Kerala. But what if it was a ship that had an accident and exploded, and their fuel source was sprayed into the upper atmosphere and replicated until it was heavy enough to rain down? If this new theory is correct, the people of Kerala, instead of saying it's raining cats and dogs, are going to have to say it's raining cows and horses. Cows. Okay, I guess that sounded funnier in my head. Anyways, just remember, the next time you see one of these, an alien sees one of these. That's it for me. If you'd like to get a free copy of one of my books, go to www.seleptium.com. I'll put a link in the description below. And leave a comment. Let me know what you think of my new cow mutilation theory. And always, remember, you are the result of 4 billion years of evolution. So go be amazing.